Yo, we're back. Mikey Plums is over at his house, so me and John are working on the closet in my house. I bought this Kreg Accu-Cut. I got the regular pack with the sled and the extension because we're cutting 8-foot boards of plywood for this closet. So you want as straight a cut as possible. We did this in Mike's house. I'll cut back to Mike's house where he was just using like his long level and like trying to just freehand the cut, and it worked because Mike's really good at using a circular saw, but I'm not that good. So I bought this guy and I think it's worth its weight. So we'll kind of walk you through what we got going on here.
Doesn't weigh very much.
Yeah, it doesn't weigh very much. It's worth more than its weight, I guess.
John and I forgot to mention while filming this video that you can buy the track guide system for about $90 to $100 on Amazon. And then you can buy the extension pack for about $90 to $100 on Amazon as well. Kind of silly that the extension pack costs about as much as the regular set, but I guess that's how they sell it.
So it was definitely a little confusing to put together at first. The sled itself is pretty simple. We might have like kind of done the arrows the wrong way, but I don't think it matters. So there's these little arrows in the sled. And when you get it, you can kind of see there's like there's two different pieces that comes in the regular kit. So that's good for a 48 cut. But I bought the extension, which is really nice. They kind of make it so that's extendable. So we can cut 8-foot pieces.
I guess if you buy enough pieces, you can do
however
long you want.
It just kind of gets a little ridiculous. But they basically just have these little sleds or like slides inside. They came unscrewed. You put them in, screw them down. It tightens it all up. And then there's like these rubber pads that on the initial pack, these came already on the sled. On the extension pack, you have to kind of rip off a little piece of paper and then it has some, stickiness and you just stick it to the sled. So that was a little weird at first, but it's easy enough to put together. So this piece is really easy to put together. It's just a Phillips head, they'll be loose, you tighten them up, you're good to go. We did find that like after, working on it for 2-3 hours, I guess the vibration from the circular saw kind of loosened these up. So just double check them, each cut, make sure the thing's not coming apart. So then there's this little piece here. Again, it was kind of confusing when we first got it. You can see like there's this little gap right here. As you use it, you'll notice it kind of comes out. So you got to kind of push it back in, but it comes on its own like this. And we're sitting here like, idiots trying to go like that. We finally realized, no, it goes like this. So it's really simple, just slides on in. Just make sure it's nice and tight. And then underneath, this is kind of your stop against the wood. So when you're eventually gonna cut, the first thing you're gonna do is make sure that that stop hits the plywood and then go left or right, whichever way you're gonna use it. This saw sled is really nice. This is the most confusing part of the whole thing, right? Like it took us a while to kind of figure out, because there's like cross-cut tools and stuff that they have too. So like I'm sitting here playing with this thing, like what does this do? This doesn't do anything with just this tool. I think this works with the cross-cut tool, right? Isn't that what it's
There's like a rip cutting
like a
guide.
rip cut tool or something, but we don't have that. So I'm sitting here screwing with this saying, this has to do something. It doesn't do anything in this case, but it can if you buy the other tool. So I'll take this apart real quick. So there's, we've been using it, so you can see, we do like it. It's pretty simple. You loosen up these little guys.
There's little tension screws you throw into the base of your saw.
And you loosen up this guy. So they kind of spin out. They'll come kind of like that. It's going to come out of the pack like that. So that's pretty much all you need to hold it in place. This guy's really important. I don't want to take this apart right now because once you have it set for your saw, it's pretty much where you want it to be. That's what's going to hold the saw to be in line with the sled. Let's see if we can get like a better shot. I think mine. And actually, here's another tip. Don't screw with this with the battery on because you're gonna be like flipping it all around. Next thing you know, you're gonna turn the thing on. But so now that that's like tight, I know that, I don't know if you can kind of see it. think it was like, we didn't notice it until it was kind of on here. John also realized that this is the marker to like tell you you're in line with the sled. But now that we have, I think they call it like the index block. Now that that's set, I have it tightened down. Once I put my saw back in, and as long as my saw is up against that index block, that's gonna line up our cut exactly where we want it. So it's loose right now, but like you can see underneath, it's basically right against this. Yeah. And your first cut, it's gonna be a little weird. Your first cut's gonna take a chunk of this.
Like a 30-second or 330 seconds.
Yeah, it's like really small. You're just gonna see little blue pieces everywhere. But that's okay, it's just the first cut. And then the next cut, you know, it's you're not gonna have it happen again. You're just gonna see sawdust everywhere.
And what that helps with is you can line this blue mark up to your marks on each side. You know it's gonna be exactly on the line. And it actually helps with splintering of the plywood.
Yeah, it does. That's true. Like they were saying, it's like because of the circular saw motion, this thing keeps the pressure down so that you don't have splintering everywhere. So we're gonna put this. Oh, the last thing I'll point out. I think you're supposed to use like a Phillips head for this. You can pop this guy out. I have one of the circular saws. What is this called? Is this the? It's like the right side circular
I forget
saw.
if it's right hand, left
7
hand.
1/4 or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 7 1/4. So this does work with either. You might have to kind of flip this guy, you know, because you might be cutting on this side or you might be cutting on this side depending on your saw. But this thing can pop out and flip the other way if your saw doesn't have the beveled front like this. Okay, so some are just like a flat track. Some have this like bevel up. So we left it with like the bevel up here, but it's really easy. I think you're just supposed to use like a flathead, but you can it just pops right out.
Does it have screws in there?
It doesn't have screws. It kind of just like fits nice and snug. So, but we didn't have to mess with that. The last thing I'll say before we actually show you the cut is these things can come all the way off. Like theoretically, I probably should take this all the way off and then have it rotate like this way so that it's on my. I don't know if that would work either, honestly. My saw is a little awkward with this thing here.
Every saw is a little different. They're gonna have different obstacles, so you can move those
You
around.
can move these around a little bit. So, all right. So we'll pause the video. We'll come back and we'll actually show you a cut. All right. So we got the sled back on. One thing we noticed, and we saw someone complaining about this on YouTube as well, and I don't think it's super warranted. It is a little weird, but it's not a big deal. The sled is going to kind of like come off. Okay. It's like there's tension up here, and it seems to be pressing this off of the bottom of your saw. Not a big deal because once you're on and you got your guard out of the way and you're rolling, it's flat. It's perfectly fine. You know, you're going to be fine with it. So don't worry about that if that's happening to you. Different saws may not have that happen. We're not sure, but ours, it kind of is. Yeah. And then the last thing to kind of point out when this thing is in action, and we'll have an action shot for you in a second, the stickiness on the bottom of the Accu-Cut helps hold this thing in place. But again, you want to have that guard flat up against the edge of your plywood because you're pushing that way. So it's going to kind of keep you in place. And this thing's worked really well. And the last thing I'll kind of say is like, just try to make sure whatever you're cutting doesn't have a ton of sawdust all over it. We have sawdust everywhere in here right now, but like try to make sure where you're cutting is clean because I would imagine that would possibly screw up that stickiness on the bottom of the Accu-Cut tool. So just something to keep in mind. So we'll give you an action shot. John will do that part. All right, so John's gonna do the honors of cutting. Hold on, John. So I just wanna point out, you wanna line up that side first because like I said, that guard in the back, you want it nice and tight against the plywood. We'll show you that in 1 second. But John lines that side up and then I'm down here and I line this side up. So I'm lined up real nice and tight against our mark. The other thing, point out, we're on sawhorses. We put like a scrap piece of plywood underneath of our regular piece of plywood to help reinforce everything. You don't want to cut your sawhorses necessarily and like you don't want it to fall once you make the cut. So John put it up nice and tight on his mark and we can see we're nice and tight on the plywood there. So let's give her a rip, John. Hold on 1 second. Yep.
First thing I always do is make sure this is lined up right.
Yep, make sure that's lined up. Hold on, let me zoom in over here. Yep, go ahead.
And then I lift up my blade guard and I just send it.
So as you can see, lots of sawdust coming up. Let's pull this off. And it just moves just like that. I mean, I just did that.
But when I'm using the saw, it's not going
It's
this way.
pushing that way, so it's keeping it nice and tight. But let's separate these.
No chipping.
No chipping. Like, honestly, this cut is like pretty much better than the factory cut. It's really nice.
And it's a lot easier than a table saw.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than a table saw. You're not moving. I guess it's a little less dangerous than a table saw. But overall, I don't know how many plungers we give in this one.
I'm giving it at least 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, 4.5 out of 5. It's a little tricky to put together, but once you kind of have it together and you're all set, it's nice. I like it. So give us a thumbs up, John.